course. Thank you all for being here. I am here with my family, who I am going to entrust to speak on behalf of my family. So instead of speaking to you as Brandon's baby sister, the last of my father's children, number 5, Brandon was number 4, who's just a year apart from my brother. As I was over here, I realized all the other roles that I play. Tiffany Boyd, the Commissioner for Commission for Children and Families, representing Janice Hahn. Tiffany Boyd, the advocate who has dedicated 20 years of her life to transforming the child welfare system, who has worked for the likes of Kamala Harris, who has worked with people like Karen Bass, who romanticized that she had all the political connections in the world. But none of them mattered that faithful day. None of the opportunities of sitting in rooms and being on the Proposition HHH Commission and representing my constituency, none of the floors that I've spoken on or seats that I've sat in that look like yours made a difference when my brother was on the stairs pouring his heart out. And while I do imagine in the event that they might have called me in time to make some of these political calls and let people know that that was my brother on the stairs, in that moment, it didn't happen. And so I'm not here as Brandon's little sister to tell you what you already know. I'm here as one of your colleagues to remind you that this can be you too. They might not have time to call you. Your family and your connections that would stop something like this from happening to your brother, cousin, relative when they snap, because mental health is real and people do snap at some point. People do break. Men do cry. Men do hurt. I think it would be so unfortunate, and I wish that you never have to feel this feeling to have all the connections in the world, but none enough to reach the people that you love. To sit in meetings with directors of mental health and heads of departments, knowing that you have people at home that are in crisis, that none of those departments are doing anything that's actually going to trickle down to make a difference. None of the decisions that we're making would have been culturally relevant enough. Nobody took the time to give that human decency. And I know for a fact if I was on the stairs, I would have been treated differently. That's not fair, and that's not okay. So I'm going to let my sisters and my family speak on behalf of our family. But as somebody that sits on the other side where you sit, I just want to remind you that you can be sitting where we're sitting too.
My sister so eloquently reminded us all of the fragility that we all can face just being humans. I would like to just start with some facts. According to the Long Beach Police Department, the use of force policy, a peace officer shall not use deadly force against a person based on the danger that person poses to themselves. Only in the event that there is imminent harm, and other officers also agreed that there could be imminent harm. Imminent harm is not merely a fear of future harm, no matter how great the likelihood of the harm, but it is one that from appearance must be instantly confronted and addressed. You don't get to choose when you're going to make the harm, according to the Long Beach policy. In 2022, residents of the city of Long Beach expressed their disapproval of the use of military equipment by Long Beach Police Department. One resident stated, "I don't feel safer knowing that Long Beach Police Department has military equipment." On that same July 13th, 2022, the Long Beach Police Chief Wally Habish said that the military-grade equipment is not typically used day to day, but mostly for squad operations. He gave a list of possible reasons to use the military equipment, including civil unrest, active shooter responses, barricaded subjects, hostage rescue, high search warrants, international or domestic terrorism, and disaster response. However, my brother was sitting on the church steps by himself. That fateful night, in response to what he had done, police chief got on the TV on November 19th and praised his officers for the use of those same military weapons against my brother on the church steps. Protocols for officers responding to people who they believe may be looking for a suicide by cop situation. According to Dr. John Nicoletti, a police psychologist, Dr. Nicoletti says in some spontaneous suicide by cops incidents, pointing a firearm at a person may actually be what causes him to think of suicide by cop as a way out of his unhappy life. Posing a firearm can set in motion disastrous consequences. The protocol for officers responding to a potential suicide by cop incident is a three-step process. First, cops make themselves safe and ensure public safety. Next, officers must remember and be aware that pointing a gun at a potentially suicidal person will increase his or her anxiety and exasperate the situation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your time is
I just
concluded.
wanted to make sure that
Finish your
there's a lot of emotion, but I wanted to make sure that we talk about facts. And the facts have been lost since November 19th by the city of Long Beach. And while I had a moment, I just wanted to make sure that I expressed some facts. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you for your time.
As a research scholar who went and did some simple research, just as a person in the community, a civilian, I'm not sure at what point the officers who are sworn to protect and serve us also had access to this information, but I just would like to leave you with a couple of quote-unquote opinions, now that I've left you all with some facts. Brandon was never the aggressor. Growing up, Brandon was never the type to hit first. Brandon was always the protector. And on that fateful night, Brandon lived up to exactly who he was. Brandon was not the aggressor and did not initiate violence that night. The city of Long Beach, the Long Beach Police Department could have been heroes that night. They could have saved my brother's life, and they could have went on to talk about, and we could have been commending them for the heroism and all the wonderful things that they did to save such a beautiful life. But they didn't do a lot of wonderful things to save such a beautiful life. Unfortunately, they chose to be villains instead of heroes for our family. I'd like you all to understand there was a permanent decision made that night based on temporary emotion. The emotions of my brother were temporary, and the emotions of the officers were temporary. The agitation from the crowd, the cold, the dark, all the things that the officers were saying that they were tired of dealing with were temporary conditions. My brother's moment was temporary. Half of the issues that he was having that day, I have been forced to find answers to. Everything was temporary, but somebody decided that they were going to make a decision that left my family with a permanent nightmare. And I'm sorry if my words agitate some people. I'm sorry if the time that I'm spending here is irritating some people. My brother was a human, and I'm a person as well, and our lives matter. And if your officers could have given my brother a few more minutes like you all just gave me, I wouldn't be standing here talking to you beautiful people tonight. I'd be at home getting ready for Christmas. But Christmas is the farthest thing from our mind right now. I have to take care of my little brother and figure out how to lay him to rest and keep my family whole. So again, I'm sorry for those of you who wanted me to leave after that first 3 minutes, and these last 3 minutes have irritated you. Body language says a lot. We could say a lot without saying anything. The same way my brother sat there and let those officers know he was peaceful with his body language. I've watched all of you speak to me this evening. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for your testimony.
Brandon Boyd's niece, oldest niece. Every time I hear my name, I'm reminded that he gave me my name. I stand here before you guys echoing a lot of the things that my family has said, but really first and foremost asking for justice for my uncle and asking that whatever you guys can do within your power that happen. We watched 17 minutes of body cam footage that the police department decided to release, but there was 2 hours of that body cam footage that is unaccounted for, that we would like to see and we would like the public to see so that his name isn't tarnished in the media, in your minds. He was a person, like my family has said, he was human. He was a lot to us, to his family, and his legacy deserves to be said in the way that he meant it to be. Told exactly the tragedy that happened that night. So yes, we are demanding that body cam footage be released, all 2 hours of it, so that we can see and that those officers be held accountable for the murder of my uncle, because that's exactly what it was. It was a murder, and so we ask that they be accountable for that. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
What I saw and heard on the night that I went out to support the Boyd family after Brandon was murdered by Long Beach Police Department was absolutely disgusting. It was evil, it was sick, and it was disrespectful what they did to this family. We all watched the 17.5-minute video, the video that the police department chose to edit to remove any source of information about what actually happened in those 2.5 hours that they were out there with Brandon Boyd. His sister screaming and pleading, "We are here. We love him. This is our brother. Let us talk to him. He needs help." Not the therapist that the police claimed to have on the scene, but there were therapists, because there is a treatment center right behind that church with therapists that came out and said, "We are here. We are professionals. Let us talk to him. He needs help." His friends, who are his brothers because they grew up together, said, "We are here. Let us talk to him. He needs help." And instead of the police being human, because they are not, instead of them doing the right thing, they shunned the family, they shunned the professionals, they shunned the friends. They said, "You are aggravating the suspect," as if the man who contacted the police for help was a suspect rather than being a victim of his own mental health crisis. Right? They didn't consider any of those things. They didn't see him as created in the image and likeness of God, which he is. They didn't see that his family loves this man and cares for him and wanted to help him because they saw the crisis, right? I know personally, because I was out there until almost 3 o'clock in the morning, that Brandon's body lay cold on those church steps from the time he was gunned down by Long Beach police at 5:39 p.m. until almost 3 a.m. Why was he out there for so long? Why did they use a flash grenade in the first place? Right? This is a man who had his hands up, out, and we all watched it on the news prior to the police releasing their video footage, right? ABC7, we said, we're the only ones here on the scene. This man had Chris Christie. This man had his hands up the whole time. This is a bizarre turn of events. There's going to have to be some major internal investigation within Long Beach Police Department. Y'all need to do some major internal investigation. As the leaders of this city, investigate what really happened here. Why did they use a flash grenade, throw something at a man who's in distress, who is de-escalating himself, and then gun him down and claim that it's because he pulled a weapon on them? Who in their right mind says something like that, right? Brandon was not in his right mind. He said that at the time, "I'm having a crisis." They are supposedly the people who are supposed to protect and serve, so they should have been in their right mind, but they're the ones who instigated the violence, and they need to be held accountable.
Thank you. All right, I think that's all the members of the Boyd family. I wanna just extend my condolences, go to the presentations, but I think we just need to acknowledge that was a very powerful, impactful public comment period that we just had, and there's a lot of trauma. Our health department has put out resources for people to cope with trauma. I'm gonna ask that they put it out again after tonight. This is particularly traumatic for many members of our community, particularly people are here from North Long Beach to celebrate Councilman Austin, so let's make sure that we put that out again tomorrow. I'm gonna do one more item before we go to recognizing the leadership and service of Councilman Austin.